Have you ever found yourself quietly turning down a family gathering? Not because you were upset, not because you didn't care, but because you just didn't want to go. Maybe it used to feel easy. You'd show up with a smile, bring a little gift, sit through the conversations, even if they were loud or repetitive. But lately, something's changed. You hesitate. You make excuses. And sometimes, you wonder if anyone notices at all. If that sounds like you, I want you to know something important. You're not alone. And more than that, there's nothing wrong with you. What you're feeling isn't coldness. It's not bitterness. It's not a sign that you're giving up or withdrawing from life. It might just be your heart quietly saying, I need something different now. In today's video, we're going to gently explore 7 psychological reasons why so many older adults, even the most loving, devoted, and social, begin to pull back from family visits. These reasons aren't about rejection. They're about evolution. They're about the deep, quiet shifts that happen with age, with wisdom, with experience. And by the end of this video, my hope is that you'll feel something powerful: understanding, relief, and maybe a little self-forgiveness. So if you've been wondering, why am I like this now? Keep watching. The answers may surprise you, and they may also set you free. As we grow older, something begins to shift quietly, gently, but deeply. It's not just the change in how we move or how much energy we have. It's also the way we relate to others and to ourselves. Many older adults find themselves pulling back from social gatherings, especially family visits. Not because they've stopped loving their families, not because they're becoming grumpy or distant, but because something inside has begun to evolve. And here's the truth. This experience is more common than most people realize, but hardly anyone talks about it. You might feel a little guilty for turning down an invitation. You might wonder if you're becoming antisocial or too sensitive. But what's really happening is far more human and far more normal. Psychologists call it relational recalibration. It means your emotional needs are shifting. You're no longer driven by obligation or pressure to keep up with everyone. Instead, you start seeking peace, meaning comfort. This doesn't mean you've given up on relationships. It just means you're becoming more selective and more honest about what feels right for you. In this stage of life, your time and energy become sacred. You've spent decades giving, showing up, doing the right thing. Now, you're allowed to listen to your inner self and say, this matters to me, and this doesn't. So if you've found yourself staying home more, craving quiet, or turning down plans without knowing why, today's video is here to help you understand that feeling. Not to fix it, not to change it, but to honor it, because what you're going through is natural, wise, and entirely okay. One of the most common and quietly painful reasons why many older adults avoid visiting family is this: they don't want to be a burden. Not physically, not emotionally, not financially in any way. Even when love is present and the bond with family is strong, there can still be an internal pullback rooted in this deep sense of hesitation. They may love their children and grandchildren dearly. They think about them often, but when it comes time to visit, to ask for a ride, to need help getting around, or even just to be part of a busy household, they worry. Worry that they'll interrupt the flow, require too much effort, or shift the mood. And instead of saying this aloud, they quietly decline the invitation. Take Mr. Harold, for example. He's 82 now, and for years, he visited his daughter every Sunday. He'd sit in her warm kitchen, sip tea, and smile as his grandchildren argued over board games. These moments made him feel alive and connected. But after a minor fall last year, Harold began using a cane, and later, a walker. His body slowed down, and so did his confidence. Suddenly, Accepting a ride felt like asking for too much. He didn't want his daughter to rearrange her weekend just to pick him up. He didn't want his grandchildren to see him struggle to stand. And so, instead of risking embarrassment or inconvenience, he quietly started saying no. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared deeply. Psychologists call this a perceived burden, the belief that your presence or needs might cause trouble for others. Even if no one has said so, it often leads to quiet withdrawal, skipping gatherings, turning down visits, staying home even when the heart wants company. This is not a sign of selfishness or bitterness. It's a way of preserving dignity, of trying to protect others from discomfort, even at your own expense. But here's what's important to remember. Love does not measure your value by how little help you need. The people who care about you would much rather adjust their day than miss the chance to see you. Your presence is not an interruption. It's a gift. Yes, your needs may have changed. You might move slower, need a bit more time, or some physical support. But your stories, your voice, your simple presence, these matter deeply. You are not an extra weight. You are part of the heart of the family. So, if you found yourself stepping back lately, afraid of asking for help, please know this. It's okay to take up space. It's okay to need support. And it's okay to say yes when someone offers to include you, because showing up, even with a walker, even with help, is still showing love. And you deserve to be there. As we grow older, the way we value conversations begins to change. In our younger years, we might have tolerated, even enjoyed light, casual chatter, talking about the weather, sports, shopping, or what someone cooked for dinner felt normal, maybe even fun. But with time and experience, many older adults begin to crave something deeper, conversations that have meaning, connection, and authenticity. That's why surface-level conversations can start to feel exhausting. Take Mrs. Helen, for instance. She's 76 and still gets invited to family gatherings. When she goes, she smiles politely, answers the usual questions. How have you been? Are you keeping busy? Still doing your crossword puzzles? People mean well, of course, but after an hour or two, Helen finds herself fading into the background. She listens to stories about new jobs, new diets, new TV shows, none of which truly interest her. And deep down, she begins to feel invisible. It's not that she doesn't want to be around her family. She does. She loves them. But when the conversation feels shallow, when no one asks her about her memories, her opinions, or how she's really doing, it leaves her feeling emotionally tired. This experience is more common than you might think. As we age, our emotional bandwidth shifts. We no longer feel the need to fill space with noise. We prefer sincerity over small talk. And we begin to recognize when a conversation feels more like a performance than a connection. Psychologists have studied this shift. It's part of a theory called socio-emotional selectivity. As we grow older, we naturally begin to prioritize emotionally meaningful experiences. We focus more on depth than breadth, more on who we talk to and why, rather than just going through the motions. So when older adults stop attending events or avoid long group gatherings, it's not always because they're physically tired. Sometimes they're just emotionally drained, tired of talking, without truly being heard. That's what many seniors won't say out loud. I want to feel like my voice matters. And it does. Your voice does matter. Your life has decades of richness, heartbreak, humor, wisdom. And those stories deserve more than a few polite nods. At the dinner table, it's perfectly okay to seek out conversations that nourish your spirit, to spend time with people who ask meaningful questions, to gently say no to events where you know you'll feel like a background character. Wanting more depth in your connections isn't a sign of being picky or grumpy. It's a sign of clarity and emotional maturity. So if surface conversations leave you tired lately, you're not broken, you're evolving. You're becoming someone who values real presence over polite performance. And that's something truly beautiful. As we age, we carry not just memories, but emotional scars. Some fade gently with time. Others stay sharp, especially when they come from people we love. That's why for many older adults, avoiding family visits isn't about the present. It's about the past. Moments long gone still echo in the heart. A careless comment from a daughter-in-law, a time when no one remembered your birthday, an argument that was never resolved. These wounds may seem small to others, but they leave lasting marks. Let's take Mr. James. He's 79 and lives alone. Years ago, during a family dinner, one of his sons made a joke about his forgetfulness. Everyone laughed, but James didn't. He stayed quiet, but inside, he felt deeply embarrassed. Since then, he's politely declined most invitations. He says it's because he's tired, but really, he doesn't want to risk feeling humiliated again. Many seniors carry similar unspoken hurts. They've been made to feel invisible, dismissed, or misunderstood often by the very people they love most. And because older adults often value harmony over conflict, they don't bring it up. They simply pull away. This form of emotional self-protection is common and entirely human. It doesn't mean holding a grudge. It means remembering how something made you feel and wanting to avoid that pain again. The challenge is that family members don't always realize the impact of their words or actions. What was a passing remark for one person may be a painful memory for another. And without open conversations, misunderstandings quietly grow into distance. Psychologists call this emotional residue the leftover feelings from past experiences that shape how we respond in the present. These feelings can affect how safe we feel, how willing we are to open up, and whether we choose to show up at all. So, when an older adult avoids a visit, it might not be about the logistics or energy level. It might be because they're quietly remembering the last time they felt hurt, dismissed, or out of place. And they'd rather protect their heart than risk reopening an old wound. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And you're not overly sensitive. You're wise. You've learned to recognize when a space doesn't feel emotionally safe. And that awareness is a strength, not a weakness. But here's something to consider. Just as people have caused pain in the past, they can also bring healing in the present. People grow. Families change. And sometimes, revisiting a space with new boundaries and clearer communication can reopen connection, not just wounds. You don't owe anyone your presence, but you do owe yourself peace. And if that peace means staying home, that's okay. But if part of you still longs to reconnect, even gently, that's worth listening to as well. Because healing isn't always about big apologies. Sometimes, it begins with feeling seen again. Truly seen, just as you are now. One of the most painful experiences for older adults is feeling like they no longer matter, as if their worth has quietly faded into the background. It's not always intentional. Family members may not mean to cause harm, but when conversations go on without including you, when people speak louder and slower as if you don't understand, when your opinions are brushed aside or ignored entirely, it sends a clear message. You're not equal here anymore. Over time, these moments add up. And slowly, a feeling begins to settle in a feeling of being less than. Mrs. Ruby knows this feeling well. She's 81, and used to be the one everyone came to for advice. She was the family's quiet center, the one who knew when to listen, when to speak, when to bring people together. But now, at family dinners, she often sits silently, while the younger adults debate politics or parenting styles. When she offers a thought, someone quickly replies, "That's not how things work anymore, Grandma," and the conversation moves on. She smiles politely, but inside, it stings. The truth is, aging doesn't erase wisdom. It doesn't erase value. And it certainly doesn't mean your voice deserves less space at the table. But our culture often worships youth and speed and overlooks the richness that comes with lived experience. For many older adults, constantly feeling dismissed leads to emotional withdrawal. Why keep showing up? If you feel invisible when you do, this sense of being less than can take many forms. Maybe no one asks for your opinion anymore. Maybe they make decisions for you without asking. Maybe they assume you're too slow, too fragile, too old to keep up. And even when it's meant with love, the impact can still feel like quiet erasure. Psychologists refer to this as subtle ageism, not the loud, cruel kind, but the soft, well-meaning kind that still leaves a mark. It's the assumptions, the tone, the unspoken message that says, you had your time, now step aside. But here's the truth. You haven't run out of relevance. Your time isn't over. You still have thoughts, stories, insights that no one else can offer. And just because someone else doesn't see it doesn't mean it's not there. You deserve to be around people who don't just include you, but respect you, who see your age not as a limitation, but as a strength. And you have the right to gently step away from environments where you constantly feel less than. That's not being sensitive, it's being self-aware. It's protecting your dignity. If being around certain people makes you feel small, overlooked, or out of place, it's okay to say no, or at least to set boundaries. Because your presence is not something people are doing you a favor by accepting. Your presence is a gift. So, if you've been pulling away lately, not out of bitterness but out of emotional fatigue, know this: you are not less than you never were. There's something beautiful that often happens with age. We begin to enjoy our own company more than we ever did before. In earlier years, we may have filled our calendars with social plans, dinners, events, and obligations. Being around others felt necessary. Silence might have even felt uncomfortable, but over time, many older adults find peace in solitude. Not loneliness, but solitude. A quiet space where they can hear themselves think, breathe without rushing, and do simple things that bring them joy. That's why some seniors don't visit as much, not because they don't care, but because they've grown to deeply value the calm they've created in their own lives. Take Mrs. Louise Chishaba. For most of her life, she was constantly surrounded by people raising children, working full-time, caring for her aging parents. Her days were filled with movement and noise. Now, retired and living alone, she finds happiness in her morning tea, in reading a good book, in tending to her tiny garden. She doesn't need constant interaction the way she used to. Of course, she still loves her family, but big group visits feel overwhelming sometimes. She prefers one-on-one conversations, or even just a quiet phone call. And she doesn't feel guilty about saying no to social events because she finally feels at home in her own presence. This shift is natural. As we age, our priorities change. We begin to understand that peace is not something to chase, it's something we can create. Psychologists call this increased self-containment, the ability to feel emotionally full without needing external validation. It's a kind of emotional maturity that many only find later in life. And yet, to outsiders, it can look like isolation. Family members might ask, "Why don't you come around more?" Or "Don't you get lonely?" But what they don't always understand is that choosing solitude is not the same as suffering from loneliness. Enjoying your own company means knowing what makes your heart feel full, and choosing that without apology. It might mean listening to music from your youth, cooking the meals you like, just the way you like them, watching the sunrise from your porch without needing to share the moment. It's not about shutting people out. It's about finally letting yourself in. That's a powerful place to be. So, if you found yourself saying no to more visits lately, not out of sadness, but out of satisfaction, know that this is something to celebrate. It means you've built a relationship with yourself that's grounded in content. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You don't need noise to feel alive. You've learned that your own thoughts, memories, and quiet joys are enough. That doesn't mean you don't love others. It just means you finally learned to love being with you. There comes a point in life when you realize you don't have to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to justify why you didn't come to the party. You don't owe anyone a long reason for why you prefer quiet mornings, early evenings, or staying home on the weekend. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to be understood. Now, all you really want is to be accepted as you are. This shift often happens quietly. It's not about arrogance or closing off from others. It's about finally knowing who you are and feeling at peace with your choices. For many older adults, this clarity brings freedom. They stop over-explaining. They stop trying to convince others that their preferences are valid. They stop feeling guilty for needing rest or space. And yes, they may stop visiting as much, not because they're bitter or withdrawn, but because they're finally honoring their own needs without apology. Mrs. Clara Basher used to attend every family event, even when she was tired. She didn't want to disappoint anyone, but now, if she doesn't feel up to it, she simply says, "Not this time," and rests without guilt. She's not angry. She just doesn't feel the need to explain anymore. This emotional shift is a form of growth. You stop asking permission to live your life. You stop bending to others' expectations, and in doing so, you start to feel a deeper sense of peace, the kind that only comes when you've truly made peace with yourself. So, if you've stepped back a little, if you no longer feel the urge to explain every no, it doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've grown. And that kind of quiet confidence is a beautiful thing. There comes a time in life when peace becomes more valuable than participation. You no longer feel the pressure to say yes just to please others. You stop attending events out of obligation. You let go of the idea that you have to be everywhere for everyone all the time. Instead, you begin to ask yourself one simple question: will this bring me peace? For many older adults, this shift is deeply freeing. After years, sometimes decades of putting others first, of managing family needs, social expectations, and emotional demands, you finally reach a place where you realize your peace matters too. You don't want to be around chaos. You don't want to enter a room full of noise, drama, or tension. You've had enough of that in earlier chapters of life. Take Mr. Walter, for example. He's 84 and still very mentally sharp, but he stopped going to holiday gatherings with his extended family. Not because he's physically unwell, but because he finds them emotionally exhausting. Too many voices, old conflicts that resurface, people talking over each other. He now prefers a quiet meal with one or two loved ones, something calm, where he can listen, speak, and simply be. Choosing peace over pressure doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you've finally started listening to what your body, your mind, and your heart have been asking for all along. And yes, sometimes that means staying home, saying no, not explaining, just choosing stillness over stress. It might surprise others, especially those who expect the old you, the version that always said yes, always showed up, always smiled even when tired. But this new chapter of life isn't about performance, it's about presence and protecting your well-being. So if you found yourself stepping away from visits that drain you, from gatherings that feel more like duty than joy. It's not because you're giving up, it's because you're finally choosing peace. And that is something worth honoring. If any of these reasons sound familiar, please know you're not alone. And more importantly, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not becoming cold. You're not selfish. You're not giving up on family or friends. You're simply evolving. You're listening to yourself more. And that's something to be proud of. As we age, our emotional needs shift. We begin to prioritize peace, honesty, and connection over noise, expectations, and routine. That doesn't make you antisocial. It makes you aware of what drains you, what nourishes you, and what truly matters in this chapter of life. Many older adults experience the same thing. They just don't always talk about it. That's why it can feel confusing. You might wonder, why don't I enjoy visiting like I used to? Or is it bad that I prefer staying home? The answer is no. You're not broken. You're not being difficult. You're just finally listening to what your heart has been whispering all along. Whether it's needing quieter spaces, deeper conversations, or more rest, your needs are valid. Your boundaries are healthy. Your presence still matters deeply, even if it looks different than it did 10 or 20 years ago. So the next time you say no to a visit or choose stillness over socializing, remember this: you are not less. You are just choosing differently now. And that's perfectly okay. Aging isn't about fading away. It's about becoming more of who you really are. When you choose solitude, protect your peace, or say no to what no longer fits, you're not disappearing. You're refining. You're learning to show up for yourself in ways the world may not fully understand, but your soul does. You've spent so much of your life showing up for others. Now, you're allowed to turn inward, not out of isolation, but out of intention. This chapter isn't about proving anything. It's about honoring everything you've learned. And if that means stepping back from noisy gatherings, saying fewer words, or choosing quiet over company, so be it. That's not avoidance. That's wisdom in motion. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change. And you are absolutely allowed to choose what feels right for you. Even if it's not what others expect, the heart doesn't age the way the body does. It still longs for love, safety, meaning, but how it seeks those things might shift. And that's okay. So if you've become more selective with your time, your energy, your presence, trust that it's not selfish. It's self-respect. You are not withdrawing from life. You're shaping it more gently, more truthfully, more peacefully, in a way that finally feels like home. If this message spoke to your heart, take a moment to reflect, not with judgment, but with kindness. Have your needs changed over time? Have you started choosing peace? Even if it means stepping away sometimes. That's not weakness. That's growth. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What have you learned about connection, solitude, or family as you've grown older? You never know who your words might comfort or inspire. And if you know someone who might be feeling the same, quietly pulling away, but not knowing why, feel free to share this with them. Sometimes, just hearing you're not alone can make all the difference. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more gentle conversations like this. Stories that honor your experience, your wisdom, and your way of seeing the world. You matter. And we're so glad you're here.